welcome to Cooking with Ava, and today I'm going to take you through one experiment I did which came out well, which was nice, which I think you should also try it out at home. Is my jam roll bread. Yes, jam roll bread recipe, which I enjoyed with my Ghanaian cocoa drink. Very pure, unadulterated, Idealicious royal cocoa drink. Yes, I'm going to show you how to make this, which is very simple, healthy and easy to do. And yes, I baked this as usual with my air fryer, less stress, but I have other non-oven baking techniques on the channel, and let's go in. So for this, I begin by mixing my sugar and my yeast solution, which is going to help my dough actually rise up. In my mixing bowl, I added my flour. You can use pastry flour or soft flour. You add in your pastry spice and salt, which is on my channel, how to make that as well. And then in goes my sugar and yeast solution. So I used soft pastry flour because I didn't have the bread flour at that time. If you use bread flour, it gives you more gluten, which gives you more texture, like more fluffiness, and then more like bread kind of feel. So I'd recommend that if you have that at your disposal. But if you don't have, you can just do like I did with the soft flour. Then I mixed it in. I realized the water was less, so I added in just a bit of water, inculcated this. You want to make sure this is as tough as possible because we'll be mixing this with oil in there. If you don't have oil and you have margarine, you can also use that. But I realized this day that I was short with margarine. That was my only margarine left in there. So I just had that and I added in coconut oil to actually use this. And you can make bread with oil, whether it's olive oil, coconut oil, oil of your preference, that goes in there. But coconut oil improves the texture as well. I covered this and let it sit for like 10-15 minutes to let the dough also rest, and then I mixed it with the oil. Yes, so you want to really inculcate the oil in, and usually I use my fist to help like retard rhythm now, which makes it easy for it to actually go in as well. So the whole thing is that you want the oil to come and mix together with your dough beautifully, and this is going to like improve on the texture. It's going to get more smoother. It's going to also make the dough more softer. That is why you don't want to have a runny kind of mixture when you mix it with the water. Else, when you add the oil, it's going to be too sticky, too runny, too soft. Yes, so at this point, you realize that the yeast is already working because I've made it sit initially for 15 minutes. So at this point, you could see that the yeast was even beginning to work. This was very soft in there. I poured some flour on my working area. Then I put the dough onto it and I began to stretch. But because this was very soft, it was beginning to stick on my board. It was beginning to stick on my hand. It was beginning to become so much work. So I had to start inculcating flour in bits as I was stretching it out. The more you work the dough, the more it gets fluffy, the more it poofs up, the more the gluten is activated. The gluten is what is going to give you that stretchy kind of bread kind of feel. So it is very important that you actually take time to stretch it out. So I had to, sprinkle more flour and work the dough out there as well. So you want to really do this and do it well to get good results. And once I was done, obviously I used the rolling pin to roll it out. When you do bread and you use a rolling pin to roll it out, you're actually still stretching the bread, but you're improving on the texture. You're taking away the air particles in there. So that also gives you good like bread. Like it's not the bread where you buy and then there's so much air at some place, there's no bread at some part. Yes, but this gives you like a good even kind of spread in your bread. These days you can buy bread and air is like 50% of the bread. There's some big tokro in the thing. There's a cave in the bread. Yes, we don't want to make cavey bread. Yes, we want bread that have no caves in there. So you realize that when you press the dough, it bounces up because the yeast was very much active by then. And that is the whole idea in your bread. You want to make sure that your bread is well risen. You want to make sure that your bread has less air packets in there as well, so that when you bake it, you don't have a full cave in your bread as well. So yes, this will take you some time. It took me about 15 minutes. actually rolling this out, stretching it out, like getting it into a good texture. And because I was using soft pastry flour too, the work was more. If it was hard pastry flour, hard flour or bread flour, it would have been way easier than that. So once this is done, like I said, when you press on it, it will bounce back. If your pressing is not bouncing back, sweetheart, it is not yet ready to go for baking. And like I said, rolling it out will also give you a good kind of feel and stuff when you are done with it. So yes, at this point I was satisfied with it. I stretched it out on the whole board, and I was dusting it on both sides to prevent it from actually sticking to it. At a point I decided to just use my hand to just, you know, like widen it off and that kind of vibe. So yes, I just rolled all of this beautifully out. You want to really roll all of this out well. It shouldn't be too thick, because if it's too thick, by the time you are done rolling, your bread roll is going to be too heavy, and the baking of it may take too long and you may not get the best vibe. And so my main ingredient here is my jam, which I'm going to spread it out, but I added a little bit of cooking wine to it to give it some sort of vibe. When you make jam and you add some sort of wine to it, like the taste is better, the texture is also great, and it gives you some creaminess when you're actually done baking it. But that's very optional, yes. And don't forget that when you bake with alcohol, it's going to evaporate from it. So that is another thing. Just a little, just a tablespoon or a teaspoon would do the trick for you. So I spread the jam on my bread base I had done, and then I rolled it off. Like I rolled it up. Yes, I wanted to get that kind of roll kind of feel to it. You can also do jam rolls actually using like pastry base, where you make your pie or your chips. You can do that way instead of the bread kind of form. So this is like your jam bread recipe, but you can do jam rolls, which is more of a pastry based style too as well. I'll teach you that later on the channel as well. So I realized I didn't want to cut it. If you cut, it's going to ooze out and your pan will be all messed up. Yes, I wanted to do one like piece that when I'm done, I could just share together with others as well. So I dusted in my air fryer with some flour so that it becomes easy to actually move it around. It doesn't stick in, and then it gives me good result. Initially, I was going to do a spiral like this. I was like, hey, this thing looks like snake kind of vibe. So I decided to just do a donut kind of shape, like a ring donut kind of vibe in there as well. Then this, I'm going to let it sit down and poof up for some minutes as well. So I poured some sugar over it. I sprinkled some sugar over it because I wanted to have that sugar vibes on top of it. So once that was done, I placed it in the air fryer to just sit relaxed and then poof up for some 15 minutes. Now in this moment, I was making my cocoa drink. Yes, so I have some royal cocoa powder. You can use brown gold or any cocoa powder of your preference. I added in sugar and then of course some hot water. Hot water is very essential in this because I'm not doing this on the fire. Then you actually mix this all up for everything to come together. If you don't eat sugar, you can do this with honey or any sweetener of your choice. And of course, Ghana's favorite milk, some ideal milk also went in. You can use any milk preference of your choice, whether it's soya milk, any type of milk you like. Any type of milk that you like goes in there. And then we are virtually done. Let it cool down for a while. And then you pour it into your bottles. You store it up in your fridge, and you can be enjoying this in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon, in class, everywhere. You can really enjoy this everywhere as well. So this is my Royal Idealicious Ghanaian cocoa milk or cocoa drink or cocoa, how do you call it? Yeah, this is my simple recipe, and yes, you can serve this in your glass or in your mason jar. It's very creamy, very nutritious, very good for the heart. And you realize this is good recipe. There was no particles of cocoa at the end when I was done. And yes, I forgot to mention, I kept in water in the bottles because this is a little bit warm. You don't want to do this whilst it's cold, yes. So the water will check the temperature. At this point, my dough had risen well. The sugar was trying to melt, but don't be worried because once the heat goes in and it bakes, it's going to what, crystallize, so you don't really have a problem. So I did the bake function, which is 170 degrees for 20 minutes on both sides, because I realized after the first 20 minutes my dough looked nice on one side, but on the other side it wasn't well done, like it wasn't well cooked. So I had to flip it over and then let the other side also bake up. Yes, that is the thing about air fryers. When you're when you're making cakes and stuff with the air fryer and it's big, you have to make sure that you cook it on both sides, else you're not going to get well done kind of pastry or cake you're actually baking. So after that 20 minutes, which is total of 40 minutes, I liked the result. It was done on both sides. My sugar was still intact, nothing was spoiled, nothing was messed up. Then I placed it off. I allowed it to cool a bit and I decided to cut it. But the unfortunate thing was, because it was still a little bit hot, when I cut, the jam started oozing out seriously. So I'd recommend that once you're done, let it cool down completely. Obviously when you cut, the jam will ooze out, but you want to control it. So just make sure that you let it cool down a little bit before you actually cut it in. And this is something you can share with the family. So if you're having family breakfast, you can do this. You can all eat this as a go, or you can make it into smaller jam rolls or jam bread, so that when you take one, you can eat and enjoy. And I did enjoy this with my Royal Idealicious cocoa drink, or yes, cocoa drink as well. If you've watched to this point, please, if you've not subscribed, please subscribe, please do like, do share, and make sure that you encourage others to also do the same, because that's what makes us feel like, yes, we are doing a good job, we are appreciating it. That gives us that morale to keep producing good content for you. So till I see in the next food video, do live life to the fullest, be joyous, be merry. Lots of love for my team and I. Mwah.